I'm Carroll County Sheriff Jim DeWeese. With me is the elected state's attorney for Carroll County, Mr. Hayden Shoemaker. We are here to announce the arrest of a suspect in the murder of Benjaman Billings and the attempted murder of David Anderson. Yesterday afternoon, detectives from my office and officers with the West Manheim Police Department took Austin Potocki into custody at his residence on Zachary Drive in Hanover, Pennsylvania. He is considered a fugitive from justice in Pennsylvania, and we are currently holding a murder warrant and related charges to the shooting. On Friday, December 13th, 2024, at approximately 7:44 a.m., deputies from my office, along with Carroll County Fire and EMS, responded to the intersection of Wesley Road and Patapsco Road in Finksburg for a shooting with multiple shots fired into a pickup truck. Deputies located a white Silverado pickup truck in the intersection with two gunshot victims, Benjaman Billings, the driver, and David Anderson, the passenger. Mr. Billings was pronounced dead at the scene, and Mr. Anderson was taken to Sinai Hospital for a gunshot wound to his left arm. For nearly a week, detectives and crime scene investigators from my office, along with an attorney from the state's attorney's office, have been working nonstop on this case, collecting physical and digital evidence. Early in the investigation, the second shooting victim, David Anderson, provided detectives with names of individuals that he believed may have targeted he and Mr. Billings. Austin Potocki, 30, of Hanover, Pennsylvania, became our primary suspect after an initial interview days after the shooting. Detectives executed search warrants at Potocki's Hanover, PA residence and recovered physical evidence along with cell phones and computers that narrowed down a timeline placing him near the scene during the shooting. Additionally, detectives organized searches of the immediate crime scene area in Finksburg for shell casings from a rifle believed to be a .223 caliber. And extensive searches took place with nearly 30 members of my office, along with individuals, crime scene detectives, with brass detectors, canine detection dogs that detect shell casings. We could not find one casing, even though multiple rounds were fired from the weapon. Detectives could only conclude that a device was used to catch the rounds from the weapon. Also, detectives were able to track Mr. Potocki's movement the morning of the shooting, placing him near the scene when the murder took place. We believe that Mr. Potocki lied in wait and knew the movements of Billings and Anderson. We believe Potocki fired multiple rounds from an AR-223 from a location to the east of the intersection and fled on foot to a vehicle that he had staged nearby. Mr. Potocki has a business relationship with Billings and Anderson through his pool company named Austin's Pool Service in Hanover, Pennsylvania, and was about to be a litigant in a civil lawsuit initiated by Mr. Anderson. There are texts between the two regarding this potential litigation. Detectives executed multiple warrants on Potocki's residence, storage facilities that he rented in the PA area, and digital evidence through cell carriers. Detectives did seize an AR-15 .223 and were able to collect discarded shell casings that it appears Mr. Potocki tried to destroy at his residence. As with any case, the arrest of the suspect doesn't end our investigation. We will continue to collect and analyze evidence and turn this case over to Mr. Shoemaker's office for prosecution. I want to thank my detectives from my office, my crime scene investigators from my office. I often say that if something were to happen to someone in my family, the men and women that I have in my crime scene unit and detectives are the folks that I'd want to come out and investigate it. They're absolutely second to none, and they've been working tirelessly, and they did a great job with seeking justice for both the Billings and Anderson family. Also, I'd like to thank Sandra Johnson from the Carroll County State's Attorney's Office, and a big thanks to the West Manheim, Pennsylvania Police Department. The men and women of that police department and their leadership were with us every step of the way, and every time we called, they worked with us with search warrants, apprehension, surveillance, whatever it is that we needed to do. West Manheim was there immediately. With that, this is a photograph of our suspect, Mr. Potocki. He is now in Pennsylvania, incarcerated, and there will be a process to bring him back to Maryland to extradite him. Either he'll waive extradition or he'll go through extradition hearings to bring him back to the state of Maryland. Once that happens, Mr. Shoemaker's office will then prosecute Mr. Potocki for murder. Mr. Shoemaker, anything?
Yeah, good morning. I'll be relatively brief. I mean, obviously this isn't the type of crime that we see every day in Carroll County, so it's certainly one that the Sheriff's Office and my office takes incredibly seriously. I'll say that we have worked hand in hand, my office and the Sheriff's Office, in the events culminating in yesterday's charges. It's still an open investigation, so I can't comment much further than that, other than to say that we certainly believe that although anybody is presumed innocent, we have a very strong case, and our ultimate goal is to get justice for the victims of this heinous crime and for the good people of Carroll County. Thank you.
Yep.
Can you just talk about, it's more of a process question of how arresting a suspect in another jurisdiction or in Pennsylvania, how that worked or how you had to go about doing that to have this person arrested and then eventually...
Absolutely. So the second that we identified Mr. Potocki as our primary suspect, since he was in another jurisdiction, even if it was, besides being in the state of Pennsylvania, if it was in any other jurisdiction that we didn't have authority, and we work with the local police there. West Manheim Police Department happens to be that police department. We notified them immediately that this was our suspect. So any search warrants, arrest warrants, all that goes through Pennsylvania, through West Manheim Police Department. So what happens there is search warrants are initiated by them based on probable cause that we provide them. And then if there's an arrest to be made, the individual is considered a fugitive from justice based on the warrants that we have for murder. So we place detainers on that individual. He is then taken to a local jail there and then goes through a process of extradition. You've seen that nationally where someone could decide to waive extradition and be brought right back to Maryland or fight extradition. And in this case, we don't know yet because he was arrested late yesterday evening.
I guess then maybe you don't know, but how long do you expect that process to take, or assuming that you will get Mr. Potocki back into your jurisdiction?
Well, because of the holidays, it's difficult. It depends on what the court systems in Pennsylvania are doing. So here, if we were to extradite someone and they waived it, we could get that done rather quickly. But hearings could take some time to present evidence and have a judge decide whether to extradite or authorize extradition or not. But there are, I don't know if you want to respond to that, Mr. Shoes.
Yeah, I know that typically York County, Pennsylvania does extradition hearings on Fridays. So, I mean, presumably it could happen as early as this Friday. We'll see.
You mentioned litigation between the two of the parties. Can you speak to what that litigation is?
So I would always say that they have a relationship through their pool company. So Mr. Potocki is a subcontractor for Mr. Anderson and his pool company. And there was a financial agreement between the two. And apparently that financial agreement wasn't followed through. And so there was indication that litigation was to take place, and there are messages between Mr. Anderson and Mr. Potocki about that potential litigation. But it's all surrounded and based on the pool company itself and the business itself of that particular pool company.
I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if this is a typical thing, but what you described as a person trying to conceal shell casings, have a car in waiting, is that something that is out of the ordinary, or just, that sounds of like a very serious plan for something like this to take place? I was wondering if that's a level of sophistication you're used to seeing, or if that's rather new to
Well, I mean, so listen, I've been policing this county for 36 years, and shootings in and of themselves are few and far between. Something like this, I've only seen a couple of times in my career where someone has gone to great lengths to try and disguise their movements. And one would believe that there was extensive surveillance that was done prior to this incident. We do believe that Mr. Potocki knew the movements of Mr. Anderson specifically, and that's why he was where he was at, ready to do what he did. And I think the disturbing thing about this is that it doesn't appear as though he cared who was in that car. It could have been an infant or a 90-year-old woman in the back seat. He fired indiscriminately into that vehicle for a particular reason, to kill a particular person, and anybody that was in the way was going to get hit. So whether Mr. Billings was the intended target or not, we're still looking at that. We believe Mr. Anderson was the intended target.
I'm assuming you've spoken to the Billings family. Could you gauge their reaction just to, I guess, have someone in custody?
Sure. I mean, they're relieved that we have someone in custody. I mean, when these cases happen, we're constantly speaking with the victim's family and notifying them as much as we possibly can about the case along the way. And it's hard to give them information with the age of social media. There's a lot of misinformation that goes out there, and in this case, there was some strange messages that were put out through social media, and we try and keep the family away from seeing those things and let them know the real story of what we're working. But they're pleased. The Andersons are pleased also. So it's a difficult time of the year. Any time of the year for something like this is difficult, but we're here on Christmas Eve and announcing the arrest of a murder suspect, and people need to recognize that a life was lost a week ago. So there's a family now that has buried a loved one and dealing with the holiday season differently. Their lives are forever changed because of the act of doing this by Mr. Potocki.
I was wondering, just to circle back to the murder itself, I apologize if you already covered it. Can you talk about how quickly you zeroed in on Mr. Potocki and then the work of your office and your deputies just to make that arrest happen yesterday?
Yeah, so we because Mr. Anderson, the passenger in the vehicle, survived and could speak with us, he kind of gave us some indication of who he thought maybe had targeted him. So we started working through those individual names, and of course, Mr. Potocki came up as a strong suspect. We don't have many of these in Carroll County, and when we do, I'm fortunate that I have a group of people that aren't just really good. I mean, they're some of the brightest that I've ever worked with, and I'm a retired state trooper, and I've worked with an awful lot of really bright people. This is a group that I can dump everything into searching for a suspect and sifting through evidence and surveillance and whatever comes with a case like this, because I'm not necessarily worried that another one's going to show up, an hour, 2 hours, or a day later. I know that we can put an awful lot of resources into this, and Mr. Shoemaker's office is always there providing legal support for us and working with us on the search warrant aspect and the legalities of the case. And so my detectives are regularly, and his attorneys are regularly giving us briefings on what they've learned so that we can provide them resources and help direct them investigatively and legally in the case. But it's fulfilling, it's rewarding to see that my detectives will work absolutely nonstop. I mean, I get texts at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning if these guys are out and what they've learned, and this is what we're doing. And so, they're just a wonderful group of individuals, so I'm proud of them.
Out of question.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to add that I'm not asking? Is there anything you want to make sure
Yeah.
that we cover?
Nope. Good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.